But if you really follow like the Soviet bloc or the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet bloc when it comes to fighting, there's two really distinct styles, and Beterbiev has the one style, and Bivol has the other style. Bivol is the much, I guess you could say, he's the guy that's using his body the entire time when he's in the ring. He's on his feet, he's going back and forth, he's controlling the distance, and he's doing a really good job of that. And we can clearly see how he did that against Canelo, and how he's done that, in other fights, whatever, recently, and even when he started. And then when you look at Beterbiev, he is the he is the guy that is the aggressor. And when if you follow, like, because I followed, amateur boxing intently, like in the 90s, and that's when video came out and we could watch fights, and there was always two distinct styles. You'd have the guys that would have the long guard and then be bouncing in and out. They'd be on their toes or the balls of their feet the entire fight. And then you'd have the other guys that would move. They would have great footwork, but they'd be more flat-footed, and they would move in and out, and they'd be extremely powerful guys. And a lot of those guys come from the, I would say, the Asian southern portion of the Soviet Union that is right now Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan. And a perfect example of that is look at uh,
Golovkin.
Triple G. There you go. Triple G is a perfect example of that. He's not a He's on his feet. He's flat-footed the entire time. Rarely do you see him bounce up, whatever. He may do it once in a while, but he's that prototypical example of aggressive, calculated. He can close the distance very quickly by taking 2 to 3 steps. And I remember in amateur boxing, those guys could move so fast with their punches, and it was like a drill that they would do where they would step with the left foot, punch with the right hand, and they would go boop 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 boop, and they close the distance on you in a split second. And there's a couple videos of Beterbiev doing that in training camp where he slips and then he like throws 3 punches and he's already on the other side of the ring. He's walked you down into the other side of the ring. And
That's
so like people don't think about that. They're like, oh, that's just an no. That because not everybody can be an aggressive fighter. Not everybody is built like Beterbiev or Golovkin. Like, you got guys that are short, stocky, and I'm not saying that Beterbiev is short, but he's stocky. He's built differently. Like, he has a build that is much more powerful. He doesn't have, I would say, the conditioning to stay on his toes the entire fight. You get what I'm saying, right? He's I would highly say that he's more type 1 muscle fiber, and Bevo is more type 2 muscle fiber. Not saying that they both don't have extreme power, but I think the muscle makeup makes a big difference. And those guys back in the day, they kind of knew what they were doing, experimenting with people.
that's a very interesting observation you made about um, the guys from the southern Russia, Central Asia sort of areas have that sort of style as compared to other parts. Because we people are sort of mistaken Beterbiev and people say Beterbiev is more of the puncher, Bill was more of the boxer, but Beterbiev does have a stronger, arguably stronger amateur pedigree than Bivol.
Yes.
I know he beat Kovalev twice in the amateurs. I think he had a record which is perhaps better and more fights than Bivol, but he's been looked at almost as the puncher and Bivol as the pure boxer. So it's very interesting observation there. Very interesting. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of tell people, and that comes from, you know, that comes from like I didn't when I grew up, like I got to study pro boxers in person, but I got to study like the Russian school of boxing from tape. And then when we would go to tournaments or whatever, that's where I would study it. So it's a little bit different. And then like when we had coaches that immigrated over here, they were from Ukraine. There was one guy from Ukraine. There's another guy that came here from, I think it was Lithuania. So like he came to Detroit for a little while, and he would come with us to train and stuff like that. And so like that's where the idea came from, because I remember the one guy was short. The one coach from Ukraine was short and stocky, and he says you can fight two ways. He's like, you can be aggressive and move side to side and then walk your opponent down. He's like, but you're not strong enough to do that. Maybe he says if you go to heavyweight and you put on a lot of weight, he said maybe you can do that. But he says you're not strong enough to do that. He's like, you need to fight, you know, on the balls of your feet. You need to learn how to move. You need to learn how to control everybody with your jab. And when you look at it, you know, that's kind of like what most people think of. They think of the Soviet style is just long guard and then,
Mm.
you know, the
Now,
pendulum.
mm,
Yeah, yeah. You're a rhythm fighter, and it's not, because if you look at a lot of those fighters that are that came out of the southern portion, a lot of them were are aggressive fighters.